Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Gift of Need podcast. In case you missed part one of why we need communities and how important they are in our lives, I'm Jude DeMeglio-Trang. This podcast is looking at the overlooked power of human need and how it shapes our behavior, our relationships, and society. And it is my belief that our needs are not burdens, but gifts. My special, wonderful guest today is Sam Quinones, investigative journalist, author, and speaker. He's the author of Dreamland, The True Tale of America's Opiate Epidemic. It was the National Book Critics Circle Award for Nonfiction and one of the best books of the year in 2015. Also, The Least of Us, True Tales of America and Hope in the Time of Fentanyl and Meth, long listed for the Andrew Carnegie Medal. Welcome, Sam.
Thanks again, Jude. Appreciate your interest. Good to be with you.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to pick up where we left off last time. And Sam, well, just listen to the podcast. So we're going to go on. It sounds to me like you are in sync with Robert Putnam's book, Bowling Alone, The Collapse and Revival of American Community. He said, mending our frayed social capital is key to preserving the very fabric of our society. To me, Putnam hit on a really significant point regarding communities. The community that we are an integral part of will determine the direction of our lives as individuals and also the life of society we live in, because individuals make up societies. What you're talking about is how the drug, opioid, meth epidemic has destroyed so much of American society. You gave us a lot of the reasons last time. Any comments just about community or?
Well, I think they have been overlaid on a country that has already shredded that idea, so they are symptoms as much as they are causes of what's going on in America, and it seems to me that we have just done far too much to isolate ourselves, and these drugs just prosper in that, that's how they're so it's such fertile ground for those drugs, as well as other problems, mental illness stuff, the anxiety that kids feel because of COVID, because of the of smartphone, which I think the smartphone does a huge amount to create this anxiety, this issues of mental illness among our kids. I just have to think that it's such a part of that story. Methamphetamine is so potent now that it's really creating much more severe mental illness, but it's like it's overlaid on this isolation, on this whole economy we were talking about last time of illegal goods and services that we don't dare restrain. Marijuana is a perfect example of how we continue to blow it, in my opinion. Marijuana ought to be legal, but the big question is what marijuana should be legal, which marijuana should be legal. This hyper-potent 40% bud, 90% vape stuff, how on earth is that okay to legalize? 7% THC, 10%, something along in those lines seems to me actually ought to be remember the main issue. The main lesson of the opioid, well, there are many lessons, but one of them certainly is beware of any legal drug, number one, that is made widely available. Number two, that is highly, highly potent, and is promoted with unfounded claims about its risk-free nature. Those four elements were what created the opioid epidemic as we know it today, and that's exactly how marijuana, hyper-potent marijuana, is being promoted as well. Marijuana most likely should be illegal. I frankly think we should never have made it illegal 100 years ago, but that's a long time ago. So to me, it feels very much like we are repeating with it, believing and just afraid to say no to big capital, afraid to say no to anybody who wants to make money. And
Right, right.
regardless of what the public safety and public health issues it might be creating are.
Do you think that there's, I remember the line that, well, we can't study these drugs because they're not, they're class whatever they are. And now that marijuana has been legalized for medical use, it is being studied more. Is there no way? Is there something wrong with the mentality in our FDA and stuff that we cannot, if we regulate it, that we can regulate the strength, that we can make it,
Of course, we
like you
could do
said?
that very easily. We could do that very easily just by passing statutes that say that and by investing in inspection and investing in the infrastructure that we have always needed for alcohol, for cigarettes, for restaurants, et cetera. Same thing, though, you could very easily do that, but it would mean you would have to stand up to capital. You would have to stand up to people whose most important interest in life is making money off of that product in its most aggressive form. And you see this is the opioid epidemic again over the same idea happened. It was part of creating the opioid epidemic. All of this kind of goes into this, almost our DNA is against standing up to people who are intent, like a laser focused on making money off of this product, because the rest of us are kind of like, we got other things to do in our lives. And this person is, or this group is all just laser focused on making money. There's ways of legalizing marijuana. And again, the big question is, do you want to legalize marijuana? Yes. Well, that's not the question anymore. The question is, which marijuana do you want to legalize?
Right, right.
And that has changed dramatically over the last 30 years or so. And we do not stand up to large congregations of capital and political economic power interested in making money off of an addictive product. And that's
Right.
kind of what's happening with marijuana.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's a drug, so why can't it be regulated? I mean, it's just, you sometimes sit back and go, what are our congressmen doing? What is on earth is happening? But anyway, that's another story. We don't even want to get into the politics today. Otherwise, you and I could be here for 2 weeks. But yeah, I just read a new report about the how linked marijuana use is to heart disease now and stroke. It's no longer safe. We had a great friend of ours who actually, he was a marijuana dealer back in the 80s. And he used to say he was like a chimney. He smoked so much pot. And of course, back then it was mild, right? And he went to prison, then he got out, became a Christian, was a pastor. And then I guess maybe it's 10 years ago, he died of head and neck cancer. And just at that time, I was hearing that because marijuana is fat soluble, that it can affect the head and neck, those areas. And, so anyway, yeah, it's not harmless, but neither is alcohol, neither is, obviously, smoking cigarette kills more people than almost anything. So
yeah, but here's the interesting thing that people, I mean, the drug war had its many problems, and could go into them, but we oversold the quote unquote the battle. I don't like the term drug war. I know it was invented in the 70s with Nixon and all, but I just think it's an approach to illegal drugs. Legal drugs have a very serious consequence. We are seeing that with alcohol and tobacco, and that is that once they become legal, the use explodes. It becomes widespread. It's socially acceptable. It's easy. It's you buy it in every whatever liquor store, 7-Eleven or whatever. And so making drugs legal has a very, very powerful effect on expansion of use. And if what you're doing is selling drugs that are extraordinarily potent, that means those drugs will be used far, far more than when they were illegal.
Right.
And so to me, it feels like we have oversold. If you want to go a place where there was no drug war, go to Mexico. You see all those cartel guys. Chapo Guzman rose because there really was no attempt to do much about the drug problems in Mexico. Chapo Guzman rose to be one of Forbes magazine's top 100 top billionaires in the world. That's what you get. That's why you need a drug battle, a drug approach. The drug approach needs to be community wide. It's not just law enforcement, not just the criminal justice system. Those have very important roles in it. But you need treatment, you need prevention, you need a wide
Right.
community-based approach to addiction because we all have the brain chemistry to become addicted.
Absolutely.
And when you sell things that are highly addictive and you don't really have a very well thought out way of dealing with the consequences of extraordinarily expanded use of those products, then you get problems like we've had with cigarettes and alcohol. And I've had people say, well, we should just legalize fentanyl. I can't think of a more bizarre, frankly, dumb idea than to legalize this highly, highly potent drug and expand use to this thing that is so deadly. What we absolutely need is to expand, as I said, a community approach to addiction, because we know that human beings, every one of us, you, me, and every other single human being on earth, we all have the brain chemistry to be addicted to all of this or any of these substances or services, gambling, shopping. We all have it. It's part of our brain chemistry as human beings. It's just that we have never invested in a community based approach, which involves every asset that any common American community would have, which means law enforcement, absolutely, which means absolutely judges and jail and all that, but also means a huge prevention component. All that money that we're making supposedly from selling marijuana should be going into campaigns about why it's really a bad idea to smoke hyperpotent marijuana, but you don't really see that so much either, So all of this is part of where I come down on after years and years of doing this. We, legalizing some of these, sort of methamphetamine, legalizing methamphetamine, that's nuts. The only country that ever legalized widespread way that I'm aware of, methamphetamine was the Third Reich under Adolf Hitler, and that was it.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I remember you talked about life repair for addicted people. What is life repair, and how does that relate to community?
Well, it's a very important question. It's very complicated, but I had a heart attack in 2017, and there was a continuum of care due a large part to too much speaking, honestly. But continuum of care for heart attacks is you go to a cardiologist, your physical therapist. They train you on how to get more. Really, what it is it comes down to letting you know that your cardiac treatment is all based on your own action. You need to work out. You need to walk. You need to swim. You need to lose weight. You need to get lots more exercise. And the other component is, well, probably two other component. One is you need to eat better. Now, I was not eating badly. I had some things and I changed some things. I wasn't really eating badly. And then less stress, and I did have a lot of stress. So there's those three things. That's a continuum of care for for heart attack. With addiction, it's different. It's more of a community-based idea. You need to help people get their driver's license back. You need to help provide stages of transitional housing, not go from the street to an apartment where they just expect you to handle things on your own.
Yeah.
You go through detox, some of that very importantly in jail, because you can't leave jail.
Right.
when it gets really, really bad. You got to weather that storm, and then wrote about some of this in The Least of Us as well. And then, stages of transitional housing that are well funded and especially well supervised, so do not become festering sores in whatever community they happen to be in. That's a huge one. And up to now, we've
Or
done a good job on that.
or have a drug dealer. One of the sober living houses our son was in, one of the house supervisor was dealing him heroin and telling
Exactly.
us all the while that, oh yeah, JL's out on job interviews, he just hasn't gotten one yet. And finally, of course, when we'd see him, we could tell, no, you're not clean. Oh, anyway, yeah.
Anyway,
So
that's
life repair.
governing, supervising those sites is aggressively, constantly is so important, because when you have stories like this, it's damaging for the person, damaging for that dealer, damaging for your son, and frankly, as damaging for the neighbors and the community around that. It's not serving and creating a foundation of recovery that those people desperately need. And the neighbors you do not want to get neighbors coming up with stories before a city council going, the last time we did this, the guy was dealing heroin out of the sober living house. So you have this community thing. It starts in jail, if you ask me. And there's jails that are experimenting with jail as recovery places. And I wrote a lot about
Yes.
that in the book, in The Least of Us. But also you get this community approach where you've got people who are, there to help you get your driver's license back. Judges in drug court who are making sure that you are accountable and you are not telling lies and backsliding. So it'll happen, but when that happens, that there's a quick correction and so on. And I think it's that approach that is so important. Obviously, prevention is a big part of all this. But when it comes to just community continuum of care, like any heart attack patient, for addiction, it involves a lot of things that other problems don't involve, like finding getting your driver's license back, like getting your tattoos removed, like living in a place that requires you to maintain a real responsible routine and not have the house manager be a heroin dealer. That kind of thing is all part of the mix that I believe, and that is a community-based thing, and the community can create it. We have those assets in almost every town and county in America. We just need to marshal them together in some coherent way.
Yeah. I think about that African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. And, people around the world, seems, other than us in America and other Western societies, seem to know that. Like you need extended family, siblings, neighbors, the aunt down the street, even if she's not a physical aunt. The people keeping an eye on you and watching out for you, they all play a role in raising a child. And it gives them that security of a community environment where they can hopefully develop and flourish. And it's the exact
And
opposite of isolation.
it also, I think, very importantly, shows us how we all have some way of contributing to this problem, because it's in every community, because they're human beings in every community, and that every group or organization or neighborhood has some part to play. Like every clergy, chamber of commerce, PTA, all of these can be part of this continuum of community, continuum of care that I
Mm-hmm.
think is essential. And it is not perfect. None of this stuff is perfect when it comes to addiction recovery, because we're all human beings and we're all dealing with the human brain, which is very, very mysterious. But it would be far superior to almost anything we have currently.
Right.
It seems to me. And again, we have done a horrible disservice to ourselves, to say, no, we can't have law enforcement involved because that's the drug war. That's just nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
It drives me nuts when I hear that kind of stuff. Well, all they did was mass incarceration. Mass incarceration exists today in tent encampments and drug spots all across the country. People are absolutely tethered to fentanyl and methamphetamine, drugs that will first drive them mad in the case of meth, and will kill them in the case of fentanyl. We need to understand that we need this kind of continuum of care that's community-based, that involves, and that is permanent. It's not something that, okay, tomorrow we stop having this problem. We still need this.
Yeah.
Still need it for all kinds of folks.
Well, I think and you're talking about the preventative. So the life repair is on the back end. The preventative, I'm interested in considering what effect our primary community has on the decisions we make as individuals, especially when we're growing up and we're easily influenced. Teens and peer pressures. I'm thinking of my son's school community in Tucson. And a friend of ours, after he died, and John and I were beating ourselves up. And she said, look, you were in the drug corridor, one of the main drug corridors in Tucson. Your kids started taking oxys in middle school as the party drug. Who would have thought? I mean, we had no clue. And so I just wonder if we'd lived in Montana or Iowa in 2004, not today, that environment would have been different. And I think that tells me that the preventative community, that if people have no reason to not be aware of what's out there in drugs and the prescriptions. Everybody's heard about it, So I don't know. The research and stories confirm that we need meaningful relationships and community, and I believe that as humans we have that, and that the connectivity. This is why I wrote The Gift of Need, that connectivity is a gift to each other, because we need each other. And when we realize that we need each other, we give that gift of mental, physical, and spiritual health to ourselves, and then we offer it to other people. It's just like a feeding thing, right?
And I think that what you're touching on is finding the purpose in life that I think is so lost frequently, and that's what led me to write my next book. Is coming out in September, and it's nothing. Well, it started out as nothing to do with this. I really didn't want. I'd written 2 books over 12 years about the drug addiction epidemic. I wanted to veer far away from it, and then strangely it veered all the way back. The book is about. It's a strange book, but it's about tuba players and band directors, right? And the idea being, I wanted to just write about people who had nothing to do with drug addiction, who were the opposite of people. They were looking not to find happiness from some product that they buy, which is American capitalism's great message to us all, that you can be happy if you buy this product that I produce, whether it's an iPhone or sugar or a gambling app or methamphetamine. And I wanted to focus on people who are finding fulfillment from what they were able to develop within themselves through hard work, postponed gratification, focus, devotion, especially through collaboration with others towards a larger goal. And certainly tuba playing is all about that. And marching band and high school band and college band is all about that. And so I began to just write stories about tuba players, and it became a book. But along the way, it became, as I say, it circled back to this idea of this is an antidote to our addiction malaise that we have in this country, finding the beauty of hard work, finding the beauty of focus in an era of complete distraction, finding and understanding how we can develop through hard work. We develop our own, and through hard work we find our own passion. Passion is not bestowed on us; it is developed through hard work. And it also struck me, the opioid overdose. An opioid is when your brain, through the drugs, influence your brain to tell your body to stop breathing. So you shut down that precious breath of life that is essential to, of course, everybody on Earth. Well, tuba playing is the opposite. It's about mastering and developing that precious breath of life so that you blow into this metal thing, and it sounds awful when you just do it alone. You just like that's all wet and flabby and everything. You send it through this amazing tube that is bent and twisted and all these the U-turns and everything, and it comes out the bell. That one noise that you made comes out the bell in this gorgeous, powerful sound that will shake your bones and rock the room where you are. It's an amazing idea, but that's life too, right?
Yes.
You start out making very unpleasant noises and you keep at it and you keep at it. And in the long run, you generally, most of the time, we are able to make beautiful sounds from the hard work and the unpleasant noise. That what started as an unpleasant noise, and that's what the tuba is. It's just this metaphor for life, It's like, and then all these ups and downs and turns and twists, and it comes out the bell like boom. So the book is called The Perfect Tuba. The Perfect Tuba. The subtitle is Forging Fulfillment on your own. Forging fulfillment from the bass horn, band, and hard work. In a time when American capitalist marketing is telling us just find the easiest way out, I wanted to write something that exalted hard work, postponed gratification, all of that stuff. So I wrote a book, strangely, weirdly, I know it's weird, but weirdly, it's about the tuba and band directors as maybe possessing an antidote to all of this addiction malaise that we are suffering from as a country. That's the next book.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned it, because I read reviews about it coming out and I'd forgotten to bring it up. So, well, that, and then I would add in onto that, because I know as a musician or when I do landscape design or being a mom, when you discipline yourself to do something like that, think of the gift that is to other people. So as you are building and having purpose and meaning, then you offer this incredible gift to the world.
And finding your own purpose is one of the best ways of developing community. Once you do it,
right,
other people feed off of that. Exactly right.
Right. I've got an upcoming interview with a young singer-songwriter in San Diego about the gift that songwriting and musicians offer to us. You're talking about what it does to you as a person, and that confidence it builds and the sense of purpose. And then what on earth would we do in this world without the gift that those musicians bring us? I mean, I can't imagine my life without music. And like I can't imagine my life without seeing and the beauty outside, it's just a symbiotic relationship, and I love it. I love the fact of what your new book is. I think that's incredible. So, well, we could go on and on, Sam. I think we could, but it's time to bring this conversation to a close. Thank you for making the time to be with us today and talk about how the needs that we have as individuals and communities, the need for purpose and to not be isolated, can help, and allowing others with their skills and resources, like you, an investigative journalist. It's so important, a writer. These are things that when your book came out, it filled a huge need for John and I, and we were ever so grateful for that. So the joy and fulfillment, I'm so thankful.
Well, it's very nice of you. I so appreciate your interest in my work. Thanks very much for having me on. It's been a great conversation. So appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, and folks, you can check out Sam's work by going to samquinones.com. There should be a link when the podcast is out on the transcript. Great music that you're hearing at the end is written and performed by Gabe Kubanda at Kubanda Music. You can find him on any streaming service. Please consider subscribing to this free podcast and my free Substack newsletter and leave a review. I'd love to hear from you. Bye.